nothing but the truth. Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa from India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. Every week we will deal with key issues of concern and bring you perspectives and clarity as to why these matter to you and the one clear truth that emerges from it. When I was young, there used to be a matchbox which had a label of a farmer in the grasslands of India holding a sickle, a semicircular agriculture knife used for cutting, and with a dog. And in front of him was a cheetah that was attacking him. And the matchbox was called the cheetah fight. Now, for some reason, that image stayed in my mind. And recently, when I Googled it, I found that the matchbox still existed. Though the image was not the same, it was a much more watered down version of it. When I used to see those matchboxes when I was young, I thought the cheetah lived in large numbers across the country. But the fact was that even when those matchboxes were being distributed across the country, the cheetah had become extinct as far back as 1952. This magnificent animal, if you get to see it, and the only time I really got to see it was at the movies, particularly those that focused on wildlife in Africa. It is a lanky cat with the characteristic black streaks across its face that make it recognizable. But what's outstanding about it is the fastest animal when it comes to running. They say a cheetah, when it's going after prey, can gather speeds up to as much as 120 kilometers per hour. In fact, in comparisons with the Ferrari, when a test was done, they found that while the Ferrari would take, say, 3.1 seconds to go from 0 to 60 kilometers per hour, the cheetah would do it within 3 seconds. That's how fast the cheetah is. And the reason why it's fast is because, unlike other cats, it does not have retractable claws. So these act like spikes in a sports shoe, and they're able to grip the ground better, and that's the reason for its speed. And also, its lung capacity and its body, the sleekness of its body, gives it this tremendous propulsion as it goes after its prey. Such sights were lost to India for almost 75 years. Now, in the 75th year of India's independence, the cheetah is making a dramatic comeback. On September 17th, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed them at the Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh. It was his 72nd birthday, and for India, this was a great day for celebration. Why was this such a great day for India, particularly for India's wildlife? Was because before 1952, when the cheetah went extinct, it used to live in large numbers across India, right from the top north to down south, where grasslands existed. Over the years, these began to dwindle, and historically it was reported that the Mughals, Akbar particularly, had over 9,000 cheetahs during his time, and at any given time had about 1,000 cheetahs with him. In fact, he had a favorite cheetah called Malik, which was bedecked with jewels and taken out as almost on a ceremonial parade, with his guards lifting it whenever he had court, and used this cheetah and other cheetahs when he went on hunt, because cheetahs have this peculiar capability, which is that they are non-aggressive to humans, even though they are tremendous hunters once they are out in the wild. And that's the reason they are almost treated like hound dogs by a lot of rulers that ruled India in the past. Among them, the British, and that was one of the major reasons for the decline of the cheetah, treated them as vermin, as something that has to be killed, because they felt that the larger cats, the tigers and the lions, were more important to preserve. So they in fact had bounties or rewards being given to people to shoot cheetahs. And they used to pay between 4 rupees to 10 rupees to do that. Seems like a small sum now, but those days was a very princely sum. The last reported cheetahs, unfortunately, were shot dead by the Maharaja of what is currently called Chhattisgarh, those days called Korea. And he in fact posed with 3 dead cheetahs and him holding his rifle. And this was a tragic scene subsequently because, as we know, after that there were no more cheetahs sighted and India officially declared the cheetah extinct in 1952. Now, as we said, they are making this huge comeback. They are small in numbers. Only a handful are being released into Kuno National Park. And let us go into the pros and cons of this. Now the cheetahs are back in what is considered the world's first major international translocation project for carnivores in the wild. If this experiment succeeds, then this could be the forerunner of other kinds of experiments where wildlife that was extinct in a particular country could be introduced from another species. Now, in this particular case, the cheetahs that India is getting is from Namibia in Africa. The most important thing now for the cheetahs that have been brought in is that they must survive and thrive. And for that, they require a couple of things. Most important, of course, is food. And that's one of the reasons why Kuno National Park was chosen, is because in terms of both the prey that it has and the numbers, the Kuno National Park is seen to be sufficient. Just as in Namibia, where the cheetahs used to eat deer and the impalas there that were found there, in India we have the cheetahs and the chinkaras that are food for it. And they are in plenty numbers in this particular park. They estimate that there's about 30 per square kilometer, which means that not only this particular population that they're bringing in, the half a dozen or so, and they plan to increase it to 12, later on to 25 and to 40, this particular park would be able to support that number of cheetahs that are there. The second reason is that the terrain that the Kuno National Park has is pretty similar in terms of the grasslands and forests that are so important for the cheetah survival, and these are semi-deciduous forests. The climate is perfect in the sense that it replicates what the climate was there in Namibia, and the average temperatures that the cheetahs thrive in is between 23 degrees and 40 degrees centigrade, which you find in the heart of Madhya Pradesh, where the Kuno National Park is. The real threat for the cheetahs comes from its own kind. Leopards and tigers that inhabit the area. There are around 65 leopards in Kuno National Park, and these can be very dangerous for the cheetahs. The others are the tigers, though they are at some distance away at Ranthambore. But as the cheetah population expands, they could come into conflict with it. And because both of them, all 3 of them eat deer, normally the cheetah is the loser because it is the smaller cat and therefore will be sooner or later pushed out of that particular zone. Also, there are plenty of hyenas there and the cheetahs are vulnerable to them. That's one of the reasons why the mortality rates of cheetah cubs is very, very high. It is estimated that the mortality rate is as much as 90%, which means that out of 10 cheetah cubs, only 1 would survive. And that is why it is so critical for the conditions over there to be completely amenable for the cheetah's survival. Now, it was not that Project Cheetah had an easy ride right through. Though it was conceived in 2009 when the UPA government 2 was in power and Jairam Ramesh was the then Environment Minister, they faced stiff resistance when the proposal came to relocate cheetahs from Africa. In fact, there was a court case and the Supreme Court barred that from 2013 onwards till wildlife groups and others, particularly the government as well, began to move again to the Supreme Court and request them to start the project. And in 2020, January 2020, the Project Cheetah was cleared and the Supreme Court said, yes, you could go ahead. Then became the scramble to find a housing for the cheetahs, a particular sanctuary that was important for it. The Wildlife Institute of India was tasked with that program, and they inspected something like 10 sanctuaries across the country and decided that Kuno National Park was the best for the cheetah. The reasons was that Kuno National Park was already being prepared for such a translocation, but this from the Asiatic Gir lions that are in Gujarat. Now, the original plan was to get a certain substantial amount of lions to come and populate in Kuno National Park, because there was concern that, apart from the fact that the Gir lions had really grown in numbers, that if there was a disease outbreak, there could be the entire Gir lion population wiped out. And as we know, Gir is the last holding point for the Asiatic lion. And therefore, the feeling was that if they brought some more this side, they could balance out if there was such a problem that happened. But because of that, that Kuno was being chosen initially for the lion project, a lot of the villages inside, something like 24 villages, were taken out and already relocated outside it. So it made it much easier for wildlife experts to cordon off the area and release the cheetahs when they came. So even though the cheetah is now in Kuno, there are still plenty of skeptics. Among them is the top wildlife expert Valmik Thapar, who believes that India just does not have the kind of grasslands that could permit the cheetahs to survive in large numbers. And therefore he believes that what would happen subsequently is that they would all be within fences and you would have to hand feed them. They would not thrive in the wild. Others, like the eminent wildlife expert M.K. Ranjit Singh, believes that's not true. The fact was that the cheetah had thrived in India across the ages, and only in the last century its downfall began. And he believes that the climate, as well as whatever is available in the grasslands, would allow it to thrive. Of course, there are very good examples of what has happened. I had mentioned Project Lion and the way the numbers grew. The tiger, the Project Tiger, which was started in 1972, is a great example of how a species had a dramatic revival in India. Now, the tiger under Project Tiger was protected. And because the tiger was protected, the entire, since it was the apex of the forest, the entire forest was protected. And so therefore, you had these wonderful wildlife sanctuaries flourish, and the tiger itself, which had depleted to below 2,000 or even less than 1,000 at some point, actually grew to over 3,000 now and are doing well. The hope is that the cheetah, Project Cheetah, would follow a similar path, and that as India began protecting the numbers that they got, these could then be expanded and we could see the grand return of the cheetah and its survival. So we wish Project Cheetah all success, and we look forward to seeing the cheetah in the wild in large numbers. And maybe we could take a safari one of these days and see them run at that tremendous speed that they do at 120 kilometers per hour, which is a sight for everybody's eyes. For more details of Project Cheetah, you could look at the latest issue of India Today, which puts it on its cover. It has some wonderful graphics and more interesting information about its past. Thank you for listening to this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next time. Nothing But the Truth.